When you're working in Excel, you usually have a plan in mind for the data that you're organizing. In this video, I'll demonstrate some aspects of the software that can help enhance the look of your worksheets to make interpreting your data easier. Sometimes you may wish to indicate a title above a group of columns. For example, here I have the title PRLG 702 Section 1 and have included only 7 fictional students and some information about their grades. I could have included this title in any single cell, but I want to emphasize the relationship of this group of columns. So starting from cell A1, I'm going to click and highlight across the top to cell D1, and then I'll select Merge and Center from the Alignment group on the Home tab. The cells combine into one giant cell, and it's assigned the label A1 inside of the name box. By now, the grid interface of the worksheet should be familiar to you. Think about these horizontal and vertical lines as guidelines for our eyes that make it easier for us to see how our data is organized. If we were to print this worksheet right now, the values would appear, but there would be no lines. I can reveal the print preview by going to File and clicking on Print. And I can return by clicking on the left arrow. To toggle the grid lines on or off, go to the Page Layout tab, Sheet Options group, and uncheck or check View underneath grid lines. If you wish to force the grid lines to print, you can check the box beside Print. However, I rarely do this because I prefer to use borders. I'll demonstrate adding some borders to this data. This will make it easier for me to use this worksheet on my computer, and it will also create lines that would show up if I were to print this workbook. I'll start by highlighting the cells that I'm using in this worksheet, and then I'll click on the Borders command on the Home tab, Font group. By clicking on the arrow, I can reveal all of the Borders commands. I'll start by applying all borders, and then I'll return to make a thick outside border. When I click off of the selection, you'll be able to see the borders that I've applied to my worksheet. You can also enhance the way your worksheets look by applying styles. Similar to Word, these are pre-configured clusters of format settings that you can apply to your worksheet. Select the cells to which you wish to apply the style, and then go to the Styles group on the Home tab and select the Styles command. Here I'll select Heading 1 for the class name. I'll highlight the tests, and I'll choose Heading 2. And I'll choose the rest of my worksheet, and I'll select 20% Accent 1. Notice that my borders have now become distorted, since border settings are part of style settings. I'm going to undo these changes now to return to a plain table. Now let's take a look at conditional formatting. This feature can help you interpret your data in a visual way, and it's very fast to apply. Highlight the values you want to use, and then choose an option from the pre-configured formats. If I hover my cursor over top of these different formats, I'll be able to see what the outcome would be if I were to click. I'll select the first option because I want the higher scores to be represented positively with green and the lower values to be highlighted in red. You'll see that a color gradient appears. The highest mark is the most green, the lowest mark is the most red, and the software has calculated what color to shade the background for all the values in between. If I were to change the numbers, the shading would be recalculated. You can also define customized conditions, but I won't explain the procedure for this more advanced feature right now. Even if you've done a good job planning your worksheet, you might need to revise it to incorporate additional information. To add an additional column or row, click on the heading for a row or column and then Insert, which is in the Cells group on the Home tab. Rows appear above your selection and columns appear to the left of your selection. I'll click on the header for row 3 and then Insert. I'll add another student who slipped my mind, Jeffrey Hunter, and his grade 49. The 49 appears with a white background because I need to redo the conditional formatting. The color gradient recalculates again. You can insert more than one row or column at a time by highlighting multiple headings. For example, if I highlight columns C and D and then click on Insert, because I started with a selection of 2 items, I'll gain 2 more columns. To delete rows or columns, select them by their headings and right-click and select Delete, or use the Delete command in the Cells group. Both are equivalent. If you only needed to organize a small amount of information, a table like the one I've created here might suit your purposes. But people will often use Excel to organize large amounts of information. Right now it's easy to eyeball that the test scores all belong to test number 1 because they're very close to the relevant label and only part of the data is being completed. But what if there were 100 students in this course, or 1,000? Using freeze panes will visually lock in certain cells to force them to appear even as you scroll downward or to the right of your content. I've modified this worksheet to include placeholders for many more tests, but I've only partially completed the data. Notice that as I scroll to the right to look at the results for test 12, we might be confused about which student occupied row 6. It's easy enough to go back and see that row 6 belonged to Avery Brooks, but there's an easier way to handle this. If I go to the View tab, Window Group, Freeze Panes, I can click on Freeze First Column. It may be difficult to see in this screen recording, but a solid vertical line has appeared to separate column A from column B. Now, when I click on the scroll bar and scroll to the right, it's much easier for me to see which names connect to which test scores as I analyze my data. It's always best to have a plan in mind when you create a worksheet, but once you have some experience working with Excel, you'll be able to modify and customize your worksheets as you continue to work on them. With the basics I demonstrated in this video and the previous 2 parts, you should be able to start using Excel comfortably.